Welcome to another episode of Message from Mom, where we're busting the myth that mothers-in-law aren't necessarily monsters-in-law. And I'm joined by my lovely co-hosts who happen to be my daughters-in-law. So I have Kelly to the left of me.
Hi, I'm Kelly, and I'm married to Beth's oldest son, Alex.
And Chelsea to the right of me.
Hi, I'm Chelsea, and I'm married to Beth's middle son, Andrew.
And we have a fun topic today. I went down so many deep, dark holes when I started to research it. It's so easy. Because today we're going to chat about social media and particularly TikTok, which seems to dominate all of the social channels when it comes to trends. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have our resident TikTok expert, Chelsea, chime in, and she'll let us know what the difference between trends and trending is, because there's a difference. But anyway, we always lift our glasses in a toast because we know you don't have to be a blood relative to love your relative. So cheers, ladies.
Cheers.
And I think this is episode 33. Can you believe that? Yeah. We have been podcasters since January of this year, and we're on our 33rd episode.
Crazy.
I know.
Yeah.
It's gone by really fast. It's going to be, we're going to be celebrating your first anniversary, like in the blink of an eye. We really are, which is New Year's Eve. But anyway, my message from mom today really is, since we're talking about social media, and I always think about my parents when we're doing our podcast, because I really like to reach back to their generation, my generation. Now we're passing it along to both of you, who actually you're a millennial, and then I have a Gen Xer here, and I'm a boomer. But anyway, once upon a time, in my mom and dad's generation, and they were known as the silent generation, and it wasn't even that long ago, but social exchanges involve conversations around the kitchen table, front porch, or, and I remember these vividly, telephone conversations, and your telephone was tied to the kitchen wall and everybody was listening in on your conversation. If you happen to be a teenager and, happen to have a boy call you, and, as in my case. So I used to get a lot of, everybody just happened to, find something to do, in the kitchen when I'm on the phone. And it was a pretty exciting day when I got my own phone. Yeah. I could have private conversations. But anyway, mail was also sent via the United States Postal Service, and we read our news from a daily newspaper that was delivered to our front door by a paper boy or girl, because I remember my older brother had a paper boy job, and he wasn't really a very good paper boy. Yeah. And I got roped in on many occasions on helping him on his route, although I don't think he shared the proceeds with me.
Probably not.
But anyway. So paper boy, paper girls. But yeah, those were the old days. And then radio and television, sped things up. And we had 3 networks, honestly, that controlled the narrative on everything. They dominated, your TV shows. They dominated news. I mean, they dominated everything. That was ABC, NBC, and CBS. Mm-hmm. And then things got very interesting when cable television invaded our screens with 24/7 news coverage. And networks like MTV and HBO, soon sprouted up. And then shortly after that, the internet arrived on the scene. And I believe Al Gore still claims responsibility for that. Yeah. I'm not sure. We have to fact check that. I'm not sure. Anyway, that was the running joke for a long time, is that he took credit for the internet. But so that's the World Wide Web. And like even my blog style at a certain age has that www, dot domain. And so we will, forever have the World Wide Web at our beck and disposal. But honestly, I think the internet is really when everything changed. And then social media was introduced into our life shortly after. Mm-hmm. So that leads us to 2024, where social media channels dominate our lives, I really have to say. Yeah. And they wield cultural influence on fashion and food. And we love to share that. So Kelly and I, and Chelsea joins us too over on the blog. We love that. That's one of our favorite things to do, is share that. Also, family and adolescent health issues. We have our world news and local events, political and community action events. And one thing that is really startlingly clear, and that is whether you prefer Facebook, whether you like YouTube, Instagram, or Twitter, which is now called X.
Yeah.
I think they had that name change, a year or so ago?
It'll
Elon.
never not be Twitter.
I still call it Twitter. I'm never even over there, but that's what I call it. But anyway, social media has clarified one aspect of human behavior, and that is above dispute, and that's because people love talking with like-minded people,
Mhm.
railing at each other. I mean, we see a lot of fights. We might even get into that with TikTok.
Yeah.
Sharing life's joys, interests, and grief, spending time with each other, and I think this is probably the most prevalent one, and that's watching each other.
Yeah.
We love to watch each other. And so I'm just going to give you a couple of brief statistics because, as I said, I went down a deep, dark hole when I was doing a little bit of research. But it says, according to the latest available data, Facebook is the world's most popular and widely used social media platform with 3.06 billion, that's billion with a B, monthly active users. So that means 37% of the world's population uses Facebook at least once per month. And then following right behind that is YouTube, and they have 2.7 billion users. And so that's the second most popular network. That actually happens to be my favorite of all.
Yeah.
But all eyes have been on TikTok since it leaped into popularity. And yes, we are talking about TikTok today, but I just wanted to give a little brief synopsis about social media and how we got here.
Yeah.
And I will share with you a lot of people my age, so I'm 66, and they're not really even in tune with a lot of the social channels. So it is kind of interesting. It really kind of is a young person's game, more or less. Although, I mean, I'm over on social media. I know what's going on. I know what the skinny is, but not everybody my generation does. But all eyes have been on TikTok since it leapt into popularity during the pandemic with its catchy lip syncs and trending dances. And to date, TikTok has been downloaded from the App Store more than 2.6 billion times worldwide and boasts more than 1 billion monthly active users. So it's really coming on strong. But it really is a fairly new social media platform, although they're all pretty young. But they actually morphed into TikTok in 2017 when a Chinese company by the name of BitDance purchased Musical.ly in 2017. And then they merged that with TikTok. And that's what sparked their meteoric rise in a remarkably short period of time. Because Musical.ly, I didn't, do either of you know about Musical.ly?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Right. So that really was the channel that was doing the lip syncing and the dances. And so this Chinese company, they're like, okay, if we capture that, we'll be able to capture the world.
Yeah.
And so then it merged into TikTok. But now it's really evolved into a comprehensive video service catering to diverse audiences with various content options. Although, so I thought this was interesting. So they're going to bring age into it. If you ask anyone over the age of 30 about TikTok, you might be met with a blank stare because teens account for 37.2% of TikTok's users, with people aged 20 to 29 being the second largest user group.
Wow.
Right? Although it did say the demographics are shifting because those statistics are from 20.
I was going to say, I have a hard time believing.
That was 2022. Yeah. So it has shifted. So the teens have dropped, and now we're also seeing.
They're also aging out that age demographic.
Right.
Yeah.
They are, right. Yes, because they're getting older. But so now the teens have gone from 37.2 to 25%, and the 30 to 39 demographic is rising to 21%. And that's when you come into play, Chelsea, because as I said, Chelsea is our resident TikTok expert. She really
that's
is.
a good title to have.
I know you're a TikTok expert,
but
and then I just just for reference, I just want everybody to know you just celebrated your 35th birthday.
Yeah,
so you were definitely a millennial. So we just thought so now you just have a brief history about TikTok and how it really leapt into popularity. It really was a pandemic that really because people were at home, so they're like, oh, we can lip sync, we can do dances, and then it really just kind of morphed into other things. But we are going to take a look at some things that are trending or trends over on TikTok.
Yeah.
But I am going to hand it off to you. And so, how did you, first discover TikTok, and then what was your attraction, and why do you like it, even to this day?
Well, so I first downloaded TikTok in 2020 during the pandemic because I was bored and I didn't really have anything else to do.
Right.
And I think what ultimately led me to downloading it, and I actually didn't download it right away because I know like some of my friends had already downloaded it, and I at the time taught dance to high schoolers, and they're like, Miss Chelsea, you need to download TikTok. And I was like, I'm not downloading TikTok. So I think there was maybe like a month into the pandemic that I didn't have it downloaded. And then I finally caved because there was really nothing else to do. And so I downloaded it. And that's kind of how I got hooked on it. But TikTok in 2020, it was very different than how it is now. And I do think it kind of started, like you said, with like the lip syncing and the dance videos, and a lot of the people that were going viral back then, like Charlie D'Amelio, who now, I mean, she probably has over like 100 million followers on TikTok.
That's insane.
Started by creating dance videos. And I think she started doing that when TikTok first emerged in like 2017. But she really catapulted in 2020 when COVID happened. And so then that's where you found everyone doing, I mean, I think on my TikTok that I have, there's dance videos that I did on in 2020 because I was bored. And everyone was like, oh, we're going to be TikTok famous for doing videos. But it's definitely changed to now. So
okay, well, what do you think is the biggest difference between then and now?
Well, I think between then and now, I think it's evolved into more of like a lifestyle platform. So I think almost what made YouTube, or what continues to make YouTube really popular, is like you said, people like to watch other people doing things. And I think that's always been a thing where people are just really fascinated by, I mean, there's even like TV shows where it's like you're watching a family like sitting there watching a movie, which is so strange. But I think it's really evolved into almost like a lifestyle platform where people will share day in the life, or they are sharing fashion, or they're sharing about their breakup, or they're sharing about being pregnant, or they're sharing. It's almost like very relatable content that really any issue or question that you have, you could search on TikTok and you probably could get an answer for. I don't know if it'll be the correct answer.
I was gonna say,
Right.
But like it's like a different form of Google almost, but like in video form
It
with like
is.
non-experts.
It
which
is.
is what Pinterest wanted to be when it came on the scene. And
Yes.
it had potential to get there, but I think it just got completely outrun by video format.
It did.
Yeah.
Right. Because it is a search engine. Pinterest is a search engine that actually pushes out to other, like to Google and things like that. Whereas like TikTok really is, it's that search engine just stays within TikTok. It doesn't push out any other place. So that is interesting that you brought that up. That you can search things on TikTok and you can find an answer. Now, whether it's a correct answer or not.
Well, I think too, this is what makes the platform so popular is, whether it's a correct answer or not, maybe it's not, but there are things like, say that you want to search and maybe like people feel like alone in that category of like, oh, maybe it's like a medical thing or whatever, and then you search it and then you come up with all of these videos and you're like, wow, there's like other people that have the same issue as me.
Yeah.
And then it's like, I didn't even like, I thought I was alone in this, or just things like that I think really make it popular. And not even with medical, but relationships, you know what I mean? Like someone going through a breakup and then you're like, oh, well, here's this person that's the exact same age as me and they're going through this. And, I think
people are finding community in a way that feels maybe more intimate than say Instagram. Cause I'm wondering if like, the jump or the slow evolution from just being like kind of a lip sync and dancing, more of a music video focus of that platform, if when more people are coming over from places like Facebook or Instagram or even Pinterest, and they're coming over there, and they're maybe are the people, say the new arrivals to a platform, are they the ones that are helping to kind of inject and infuse it with other content platforms, or do you think it was just kind of the normal way that a social media platform is going to go? Like, it can't always just be one idea or one thing. It's going to slowly start to involve all of these other lifestyle components and things like that. Because I can't help but wonder um if people do jump, like they'll, they really like Instagram or Facebook, and they're like, oh, there's this new thing, I'm going to see what it's like. And then they find themselves gravitating more toward TikTok. And then they start searching for or wanting to see things that they used to look at on Instagram or something like that. So then, it's kind of begetting the content that they're looking for.
Right. Well, I also think too, I mean, as you said, the social channels do evolve. And at the time, Instagram was still more of a photocentric platform.
Because the
when
video thing
TikTok,
wasn't such a big, like reels
in
and
2017,
things like that.
Instagram was very photocentric.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until TikTok and then, Snapchat also, came on the scene too. But TikTok was really what drove them then to go to short form video.
Yeah, that's
And
right, because it really did inform. Yeah, so I wonder if like people on Instagram and stuff, and even Facebook are going over to TikTok back in the early days, and they're like, I love this video, this way of doing this. It's so much cooler, and it's just feels way more of the moment, I guess, right? And so then we saw Instagram trying to catch up with
yes.
what it wasn't Reels first though. It was something else. It was
Well, they did stories.
Yeah.
And they still have stories, but I kind of think
Which kind of followed a Snapchatty kind of thing, because it
did.
disappears.
It was
after
fun
a
at the
while, right?
beginning because well, stories disappear after 24 hours and you can put different filters and things like that. Me personally, I think we're going to see stories go by the wayside.
I think,
That's just me because TikTok doesn't have stories. YouTube
They do. TikTok has
Do they have
stories.
stories? I didn't know
They
that.
started doing it. I
They
don't think
started
stories
doing
will
it.
go by the wayside on.
You don't think so?
I like stories.
You like stories?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's where I find myself scrolling on Instagram is stories.
More stories.
Oh, interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
But
That
it's so
is.
funny though, like because I don't have TikTok and I don't use Facebook, but I do pay attention to Instagram, not super regularly, but I do have some sense of what is going on over there. And I remember that shift happening where it went from being purely photographic to video. And then not only that, but as TikTok got so much bigger and, everyone's like, oh my gosh, we have to hurry up and catch up with TikTok, how Instagram started prioritizing video content over photographic content. And when I was running my blog, which was static photography of food, it starts to push you down and you don't get as many viewers or people seeing your still photos as the people who are doing videos. And so it really is this weird forcing of content creators to fit a certain mold. And I've always resented that for like, it always really bothered me. But I realized though that, TikTok drove a lot of those changes on Instagram in particular.
They did. And
Which is interesting.
I don't necessarily know if we need two social platforms well, now YouTube has it too. I mean, everybody has short form video.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But boy, that's a lot of if you're a content creator, that's a lot of content that you have to push out because they each have their own unique personality.
Yeah.
And I'm over on TikTok, but I mean, I can't say that I have a big TikTok presence at all because we just repurpose content from Instagram and Reels. And if you really wanted to be like a TikToker, you really do. I mean, whatever social platform you're on, you really have to just understand what that platform wants and then push that out. But
most of the influencers I think that do really well on TikTok, they also do have a big following on Instagram, but not as big as TikTok.
It's usually
and they normally prioritize TikTok a little bit more.
Yes.
Yeah,
and I would say
they're just repurposing.
Right. I think
they repurpose a lot of it.
they're focused on TikTok, repurpose it over on Instagram. Whereas I don't think if you're focused on Instagram, it doesn't translate as well.
No,
that's just
because TikTok,
my thinking anyway.
The difference between TikTok and Instagram is almost more of like a highlight reel. I feel like of what you're trying to promote, like your business or fashion or influencing, it feels more like, okay, we need to make this look like a highlight reel and like look perfect. Whereas I feel like with TikTok, you can be a little bit more quote unquote real in, you know, like, oh, okay, like I'm an influencer and I'm going to show you what I look like without makeup. Like I have acne and I'm going to show you that before I put my full face of makeup on. Or, you know, I'm going to talk about my breakup, or I'm going to talk about how I had a crappy day today, you know, whereas on Instagram, maybe people are showing that a little bit, but that's more of like,
it's more curated.
Picture,
yeah.
And that's probably lingering from the old days when it was a photo-centric platform and it was highly curated. I mean, magazine worthy photos were going up. And that's what they prized over there. But so now that you brought that up, let's about like, you know, someone taking us through their day or their breakup or their makeup. So what is the difference between a trend and what's trending over on TikTok?
Well, I mean, so I don't know if there's necessarily a difference, but to me, like a trend would be kind of like a sound or like a dance.
Or a dance that millions of people can copy.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like, so, okay, this sound we're going to use over and over again. And I'm sure there's multiple sounds that you guys have heard, even on Instagram, where people will recreate videos to. So to me, that's like a trend. And it's like, and even a dance trend where it's the same exact dance that people repeat.
Right. Their version.
Their version
of it.
Whereas like trending to me is more like, you know, an actual, like, I know we're going to talk about this a little bit, but, Bama Rush, you know, sorority talk.
Yes.
It's more of a
mom talk, the secret lives of Mormon wives.
So that's what we're interested in of the moment. So that's trending. Okay.
But I think that
I think it's good to make that distinction.
So I think both.
That's why you're our expert.
But I think both now are actually happening because I mean, I guess we could say this is also trending, but it's a sound. The dog and the cat,
eating the cats,
eating the cats and the dogs. I mean, that's now
a presidential debate.
Yeah, that's now a quote unquote trending sound. So I don't necessarily know if there's a difference between one or the other, but that's how I would maybe categorize them. And someone might disagree with me. I don't know.
Maybe not. But
I'm glad you made that distinction.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it's kind of helpful to kind of to think about those two ideas, because I think that the trending thing is more topical, and that's going to change, and it's more of like people aren't necessarily replicating it, but they're super interested in watching all of the content that fits in that
category.
Category. Whereas the trends are things that are easily replicated.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can participate in it in a more fundamental way rather than just being a voyeur and watching you know, something.
Exactly.
So
and I think there's a difference. I think people, content creators, I think influencers on TikTok, they do both. So you'll see like there's this one really big content creator, and she's a Gen Z, so she's like in her early 20s, but I follow her. And her name's Alex Earl, and she, I think, has like, so the crazy thing about her is that she started out with basically no followers her freshman year of college. And then she kept making videos, and all of her friends were like, why are you making these videos? And it was all these get ready with me videos where she'd get in front of her camera and she would put her makeup on and she would tell about her day. And some of the videos she'd make, she would do the dances, you know, because she thought, oh, maybe if I do this, it'll go viral. And then basically her sophomore year, I think it was, she started to really catapult into, okay, now I have like 50,000 followers. Now it's 100,000. And what was crazy about her is that she literally went from, I want to say like 300,000 followers to like 3 million followers in the span of like 5 months, if not like shorter. It was wild. And now she's got like 7 million plus.
Is she still in college?
No, so she graduated last year, I want to say. I think she's been out of college for a year. But, and the funny thing is that I think her dad actually, her whole family like had a big scandal that like up in New Jersey, and that's like a whole nother topic. But her dad is like very wealthy. Like her family is very wealthy. They live on a really big farm. And then it's like she catapulted. And I mean, people will still joke about this on her TikTok and they're like, oh, well, you know, it's like you already had money before we basically gave you more. But yeah, so it's just interesting because it's like things like that will blow up and it's like why people are fascinated with them.
Right.
I can't exactly pinpoint it, but the only thing I can say is that like for her, for instance, she's very real. Like she gets on and she used to struggle with acne and she went on Accutane twice. And so she like will literally show her skin of like, this is what my skin was like. And I mean, it's like bad, you know, where it's like no one on Instagram is like showing that, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
So there's an authenticity to TikTok that maybe is very attractive, especially to younger generations who are like really into like sharing their feelings
and relatability, because I will
vulnerability
share, I mean, at the very end of the day, no matter what platform you are on, you have to have relatability, or I mean, people just aren't going to tune into the content that you're producing. So, I mean, there's a lot of very real and raw footage over on TikTok. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, it really
Some
is.
of it maybe shouldn't even
know.
have ever been posted, to be fair.
Some of it's coming over to Instagram too, and then YouTube Shorts. But
do you feel like people are okay, so here's another did one beget the other sort of thing. Do you think that people feel a lot more inspired to be super vulnerable and super raw and super real in ways that maybe they wouldn't normally because they think that they might be able to go viral and become famous on TikTok?
I think yes. And I think TikTok is almost, and I don't know why TikTok does this because even like I have a TikTok and it's like, do you want to connect with your contact list? I'm like, no.
Right?
I'm like, literally not. If I post anything on here, like I don't want anyone that I know to see this. Like this is for people I don't know. And I think everyone that posts on TikTok has that mindset.
Really?
Like even people will make videos and they're like, keep scrolling if you know me.
That's interesting. So there's this whole idea of like being super raw, authentic, vulnerable, all these things that are very attractive to a certain group of people.
But you don't want your friends or family to see
but
it.
it's at a
right?
It's at this crazy arm's distance, which is such an interesting way to think about it. It's like, so are you really that interested in being that authentic person if there's this kind of closed off? To me, that feels like a very closed off sort of
and I don't think, like,
I don't know. It's so strange.
not everyone is like that, but like there's definitely influencers that I think are exactly the way that they are, you know, on TikTok, and that's exactly how they. But I do think that at least how people start, like even, you know, the one girl that I was talking about, Alex Earl, I think when she started, I mean, she'll even admit, like, I was embarrassed for some of my people that I knew to watch my videos because I thought that they were going to judge me or make fun of me, or why are you posting all these get ready with me, you know, videos and you're getting, you know, 50 likes.
Right.
But it's like, she obviously kept doing it and
she wanted to. I mean, obviously she liked it. Obviously she has an interest in makeup and she wanted to share that, or her acne journey or different things like that. So,
I mean, why does anyone start influencing, you know?
Right?
Like,
I know.
There's different reasons.
I know. Very different reasons. Yes. Because I'm in that world. I'm in that young woman's and man's game at 66. So, and I do love it. And I do try to be as authentic as possible, but I will share I'm over on YouTube. So I do deliver long form video, but I still kind of struggle with sharing things on short form because I feel like I dish out so much content. It's like, the last thing I want to do is like, you know, get real.
Well,
on a day-to-day basis, because I get real pretty often on different platforms. But
so TikTok too, I think they started to realize that, and there was a shift in the length of video. The length of a video. I
was going to ask you that. So what is
like
it now?
A couple years ago or a year ago, it's like 3 minutes. I want to say
that's what I thought,
and it might even be longer now.
Maximum length.
I think 3 minutes is the max, or at least that's the latest that I know. So, and that was kind of a shift that they made because initially, I don't remember, I think it was maybe a minute was the longest. And then they realized that I think they saw the shift and like people wanting to see the data life stuff, and people weren't able to actually create that in a minute, you
I
know?
mean, that makes sense.
It's challenging.
Yeah.
Okay, so we thought we would touch on a few trends or things that are trending over on TikTok. And the one we were talking about, very demure, very mindful, which has recently leapt into popularity. Then there are the Mormon Wives. They actually have a TV show, correct?
Yes.
Is it on Hulu or is
It's
it
on Hulu. I've been
on
watching it.
Hulu?
It is
Yes.
wild.
And so they got a whole television show
Secret Lives of Mormon Wives
from TikTok,
from TikTok,
right?
from Mom Talk.
From Mom Talk. So that's very interesting. But actually, so the deepest, darkest hole that I went down during this research was the Bama Rush obsession. So, and why that really fascinated me, actually, when you first shared that to me, I'm like, how are they going to share Rush? Because there are a lot of behind the scenes
Yeah.
things that you cannot share. And I know that Panhellenic, so I was in a sorority years and years ago. So I know how things work and actually, so I'll just share my own little story. So and how sororities even came into being, because it started with 12 women in Monmouth, Illinois, and they were in college in 1867. So this was the sorority that I pledged to. So Pi Beta Phi. So we got the ball rolling all those years ago, and it really was just for support, because in 1867, I believe it's 1867. I could be wrong. I used to know these dates by heart because we had to, way back in the day when I was in college.
He's like reading it out like the Constitution.
I know. Well, because it was. We had to learn everything. I mean, I used to know the history of each and every one, and some of the, I think two of the women actually turned into doctors. But anyway, so that was the reason why they started this secret, and it was a secret society. It was a secret sorority. So they had a secret handshake, and they had, and they met, and then they had, just, different things that obviously that they would talk about then. And then it leapt into, I believe it was the Kappas that came on the scene afterwards, also in Monmouth, Illinois, because we have a yearly get together with the Kappa. So Kappa Kappa Gamma. And that's probably one of the most well-known sororities, to ever be. I mean, there's been lots of songs written about it. And I think, I want to say that President Eisenhower's daughter was a Kappa. I could be wrong. But anyway, so that's how it all got started, was years and years ago, just women coming together, supporting each other. And then a whole, I don't even know. I mean, the fraternities and, came along. So, and then Panhell came along, and then College Rush came along. And then, when women in the 50s, sororities were very, very popular because more and more women were attending college. And so and being in a sorority house was a great way to meet friends and a great way to, to connect to your college and all those things. So it became um, a very popular event, but it's having gone through Rush on both sides, and then I was actually a Panhellenic counselor. I was a Rush counselor then my third year, so I do know the inner workings of this. So when you first told me, as I said, so I digress. I went down my own little rabbit hole there, but I was like, okay, they can't be like sharing everything, because
Which they don't.
They don't.
They
No.
definitely don't.
So when I was actually then watching it, I was like, it's a very generic.
It's a very surface level, like.
And I was wondering about because, as I said, Panhellenic would step in real fast and put a.
Oh yeah.
And put a.
Well, even I think that the girls that I guess what you did, what's the name of it, where they kind of counsel the girls around
Panhell. I was a Rush counselor.
Yeah. So even those girls, I think if they have any kind of social media, they have to like hide it, because they can't allow those girls to know what sorority they're in.
That's right.
To try to persuade any of them to go to their sorority or anything like that.
Exactly.
So
yeah, because that was really hard for me, and I do remember that, because you always have those girls that you initially bond with, and so you are rooting, if you start to see that they're going to your house on repeats, and that they like your sorority, you're like, oh gosh, I wish I could make a phone call to the house. Or I mean, we're completely sequestered. I mean, we can't have. When I was a Rush counselor, I couldn't have any contact with any of my sorority sisters during the whole
Mhm.
process because of that. But then you're rooting for them, and you're like,
Yeah.
and you're like, you're so excited, when bids go out too
Well, I
on bid
think
day to
that's
see, and that's a pretty traumatic day too, or it can be
when they
anyway.
created that documentary. So when Bama Rush really blew up, and
Yes,
then they created this
I
documentary, and
know.
I watched it when it came out, but
Is it good?
everyone, it's not that great and everyone kind of complained that was on Rush Talk
Mm-hmm.
because they were like, we want to see the behind the scenes, like we want to see the nitty gritty
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And I think a lot of people thought with that documentary they were going to get that, but uh, like Alabama sororities shut that down real quick.
Yeah.
Like as soon as I think HBO came on the scene, they were like, "You're not getting into our house. Like, what are you talking about?" And so that's why I think a lot of people were really disappointed because they did want to see the behind the scenes stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
And everything that you see on Rush Talk is very just
It's very generic. Yes.
generic service level. I mean, it's
Yes.
interesting. Like, obviously, you're seeing these 17, 18-year-old girls come in to rush a sorority and they have like a $20,000 outfit on.
I know.
Things
Well,
like this that you're just like,
that's what
who's buying this?
that's what struck me when I started watching what's trending over on TikTok, and one of them is she's a Bama. I think she's a Zeta.
Kylan Darnell.
Yes.
Yes.
Zeta Tau
I
Alpha.
follow her.
Well, she has a million TikTok
She does.
followers, and so she was showing me, or not me personally, but her viewers what her rush outfit was, and I'm like, hello, that is $100,000. I mean, she's dripping.
And this was before
David
she had
Yurman
all
and
of those followers.
Van Cleef Arpels, and was it? So
Well,
she
yeah.
comes from a
So I
wealthy
mean,
family.
now, like, I think she is like obviously making like great money
Oh,
on her own because
yes.
she has sponsors and partnerships that she does. But yeah, I mean, actually, her sister just kind of rose to TikTok stardom too, and her
Ooh.
sister's still in high school. But Kylan really like kind of catapulted it, but they're both like pageant girls. So they used to be in
Wow.
pageant world. And when you follow her, like I mean, she looks like a pageant girl. Like
She does.
like she does not leave that house without like every single bit of makeup on, hair perfected,
I know.
extensions in. Like she
Yes.
is to the nines.
She is. She's very well groomed, I will say. And she's very personable.
She is.
She's very personable. I mean, I got sucked in, so I had to, I watched one and then another, but I was just always struck by, if I were going through rush on the other side as just getting out of high school, and I had to meet her at one of the rush parties, I would be like,
well,
holy shit.
So
I can't compete with this.
So she has a tagline, and her tagline is kind of what, I don't necessarily know if this is what like catapulted her like following on TikTok, but it definitely helped. And so I don't know if you noticed when you watched her videos, she always starts it or ends it with
have a great day, not a good day.
Yeah, have a great day, not just a good day. And
she's not even from the South. She's from Ohio.
Well, but she grew up on a farm though.
She did.
Yeah, so she is a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, it's
she has her tagline.
It's kind of wild. I mean, I know like I'm not the only millennial watching this because other millennials will comment and they're like, they'll literally comment. They'll be like, I am a millennial mom of two sitting at home watching Rush Talk. They're like, what am I doing with my life?
I know, right? I know, but it does suck you in. And that is one of the things that is the danger about social media. Is it can just suck hours of your life that you will never have back. And
relying on that.
I mean,
this whole business model is based on doing that.
Like while I'm cooling my jets at the airport, it's one thing to go down that rabbit hole, but if I have other things to do,
it's definitely,
that's quite another. But I definitely, so I was very interested in her account. And then who else? So there have to be other accounts with this rush. And is it just focused on Bama, or is it other
Bama
sororities?
was what started it because like Bama Rush Talk really started with Alabama, and then it kind of spread to other universities. But Alabama sorority life, so I went to Bama.
I know,
but I actually wasn't in a sorority.
Roll Tide.
And I wasn't in a sorority because I was a dance major, and I just was really busy with
Yes,
dance
that's a lot of
stuff.
commitment.
With school,
Mhm.
with
actually.
school. And well, and actually a lot of my friends that were in sororities ended up having to quit their sorority like sophomore year because
Mhm.
they, you know, were missing things and they were having to pay fines because they'd have to be at a performance. And
Right.
that's neither here nor there. But Alabama sorority life is huge.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, like that's
It
why
is.
people basically go to Bama to be in
Mhm.
a
Do
sorority.
that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
That's
it's like
not
football.
So that's why basically that's why on Rush Talk it
Mhm.
blew up with Bama.
Mhm.
And they even have, I think now when they're going through Rush, they have like content hours. So there's like hours set aside during their work week or
Mhm.
whatever that week before the
Right.
actual potential new members come
Mhm.
that they create content. That's
Mhm.
all they do for like a few hours. And it's like they have to find trending
Mhm.
sounds and
Wow.
dances and they'll get together and
So it's like a
like
job practically.
Yeah.
basically.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is. So not only do they have to go
Yeah.
through Rush, and usually, like, I mean, I just remember when I was in college, and we had, you know, Rush Week was you had skit day, and you had
Mhm.
a coffee house day. I mean, you know, every day was a different day, so you had to learn different songs, and you had to learn, you know, different. You know,
Yeah.
it's a pretty big production. It really is. It was
So
way
how do
back
these girls
then.
have time for actual school? I'm
Well,
so
so
Well,
this
this
is
is just Rush
before.
Week.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
this
So
is
this is
before
a
school
specific
started.
time
Got it.
where girls that want to join a sorority, so they go to all the houses
Mhm.
one day, and then so they view all the houses, and then the houses are also viewing
Yeah.
the girls, and then it's a process of elimination.
Right.
So the house invites them back, and then they want to go back or they don't want to go back. That's how it goes until pledge day, and
Yeah.
then you hopefully then you match with a house that you love and that loves
Well,
you.
so there was one.
But
So
it's just Rush is just 1 week. Sorry,
it's
I
just 1
interrupt
week.
you. Rush is
Right.
just one
Yeah.
week, and then for like me, like when I was a sophomore, I had to go to college 2 weeks early because we had week to prep, like
Yeah.
for all of our skits,
Mhm.
learn
That's
all the
what.
songs,
Yeah.
I see.
get all of our outfits ready, and all that, and then the following week was Rush Week.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I knew Rush was just a week long, but I guess I'm still kind of clueless. Like after that 1 week is over, like what do all these girls like how I guess I don't know about how sororities work and
Mhm.
things like that. So once the Rush Week is over,
Mhm.
do these girls are they still trying to create content for their sororities? Are they still doing like
No, I mean they'll.
any of the stuff to maintain the kind of level of excitement that is shown and given back and forth on TikTok or whatever for
I wouldn't
a
say.
particular sorority?
No, I wouldn't say that they're like required to make any kind of TikTok for their sorority after that.
Mhm.
I think it's more, it's like almost like a seasonal thing.
For
So it's like
Rush.
a yearly,
Mhm.
and like even people will comment, they're like, "Oh, Rush Talk's back."
Yeah,
Oh,
You
so
know,
it doesn't even exist. Like it's only a thing.
it's really
During
only a
Rush.
thing during Rush.
So
Yeah.
then on TikTok, so is this a trend on is this a trending topic on TikTok that comes and goes every year? So like it kind of goes away for a while, but since the content is living on TikTok, people can always tune back into old
Well,
seasons of it. Is
I
that
think they tune back in and then I think they find their like favorite that they maybe continue to follow, like Kylan Darnell. Like she ended up being
I see?
quote unquote, people like almost called her like the diamond of the season, like
Right.
from like Bridgerton, like she's our
Right.
diamond, you know?
or like debutantes.
Yeah.
Also too.
And so I think that's
sort of
kind of
similar.
like people will start following them because of that and they'll follow them throughout
Yeah.
the year. But
Mhm.
Rush Talk really is like,
Just one.
It's just
It's in August before
Yeah.
school
it's
starts.
such a fascinating
Mhm.
thing to me because for a particular so for a girl who, you know, to whether or not they're trying to get TikTok famous is kind of beyond the point. It's more just this crazy idea to me that these women will have 1 week or 2 weeks to like really get themselves out there and then try to like garner enough attention and
Yeah.
likability
Mhm.
so that they can get followers to sustain that through the year. Because we know on social
Mhm.
media, you lose people, you gain people, you
Mhm.
lose people,
Yeah.
you gain people. But
Mhm.
once you lose a certain number, it's very hard to come back up to a level,
Yeah.
right? So for them to
Mhm.
maintain success is really kind of an amazing
Mhm.
feat, I
Mhm.
think,
Yeah.
for them, considering that this whole, like all of the attention is just on 1 or
Mhm.
2 weeks
Yeah.
a year. That's so crazy
Mhm.
to me.
It
That's
is.
really, really
Yeah. It
insane.
It does, but
It's interesting.
there again, that's the power of social media
Yeah.
and how we digest our news or content
Right.
or And I mean, honestly, it's like we get so excited when our favorite TV show comes back. I mean, I've been waiting with bated breath for Yellowstone season 5 part 2. And I think
can wait on that one.
But anyway, I know you can't. You don't like it very much, but I want to see how how things end up. So honestly, in my mind, that's really what Rush Talk is. It's like, oh, Rush Talk is back. It's like oh,
which not all of like the trending, like we kind of brought up a little bit, the secret lives of Mormon wives.
Yes, we have
that
to
is
segue
like
into that.
That's like a continuous,
right?
Yeah,
right. Which is kind of like more of what I was imagining the sorority thing. Like I know Rush is only 1 week, but there was part of me that was expecting that the sorority content and conversation is like an ongoing, so that was a surprise. But see, but so that going back to your trend versus trending, the topic or whatever, it's fun to watch, but I'm not going to go out and join a sorority. Just like it might be fun to watch Mormon wives, but I'm not going to go out and become a Mormon.
Right. Yeah.
But I might do a lip sync video.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So that's right.
It is just such a.
I think that the reason that all of these become so popular is just, I think people are fascinated by it.
By the
they're fascinated, like the whole Mormon wives things.
Yeah, let's touch on that.
Yeah, we can. So
because the Mormons have really been in the news lately with because so many trad wives are Mormons, and I will just share over on. I interrupted you, but over on YouTube there are several channels that have really leaped into popularity, and they were former Mormons that are basically unmasking the inner workings of the Mormon church, which is quite fascinating. It's like Scientology.
I was gonna say there's like these waves of this where like someone.
Well, it's like things are like they even kind of touch on this and the secret lives of Mormon wives, but there's like certain things that they can't talk about because it's like secret and only if you're like in the temple.
They have a lot of secrets.
You talk about it, but what's wild to me and so basically how Mom Talk and the secret lives of Mormon wives even came to be is there's an influencer, Taylor Frankie Paul, and she's Mormon and she lives in Utah, and she started doing these videos and she basically catapulted on TikTok and getting all these followers. Well, from there, she was like, let me find other Mormon moms to make dance videos with, and people are going to we're going to make this a thing. So she created this thing called Mom Talk. So she basically found, I think it started out like 10 or 12 of these other Mormon moms, and they'd get together, they'd make dances, they'd post the dances, and it blew up because they were all very pretty, hair to the nines, doing these cute little dances. Well, they would also get together on the behind the scenes, and we didn't know this until Taylor Frankie Paul basically came out and did a live, and they would have these parties at her house, which ultimately ended up being swinging parties. And that is what really drove interest, because everyone was like, wait, you're Mormon and you have swinging parties and you're drinking at these parties.
Wow.
And you drink coffee. And we're like, it's like, but.
And everybody's going, wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, everyone is like mind blown. And so she ended up.
But it's like a train wreck, or watching the Kardashians.
Exactly.
It's just like you can't look away because it's just like too riveting with all of these things being uncovered.
No, exactly. And that's why they ended up basically having a show, was ultimately because of her. And 2 of the couples I think that they ended up swinging with, they didn't end up being on the show because they were like, well, we're not going to do this if Taylor's on it. And she was like, okay, like this is, so they kind of had to bring in some of these other mom talks that weren't in the initial group. But that's kind of how it became a thing, because people were just so fascinated by how this Mormon culture, could be so secretive, and you can't do all these things, but yet they're swinging and they're doing all of this stuff. And then you see them on TV. And I mean, when I tell you some of these women are like vicious towards each other, and you're like
Real Housewives.
No, literally. And it's just crazy because you're like, they're Mormon.
And it all started.
I've learned a lot about the Mormon culture.
It's very interesting.
So I'm like, if TikTok is anything, it's educational.
Very interesting. Well, and there does tend to be quite a lot of Mormon influencers too, and they typically do very well.
Well,
They're very industrious and they're very hard work.
So after the show came out, because I know we
Mhm.
talked about this on one of our other podcast
Mhm.
episodes, but Hannah Nealman, Ballerina Farm,
Yes.
and Nara, I think it's Nara Smith. I know her first name's Nara, but basically
This is the Trad Wives.
the
So these
Trad
are
Wives,
Trad Wives.
so they are Mormon,
Mhm.
and they just did a video together, and
Mhm.
people are actually thinking that the Mormon church wanted them to do that because this show put Mormons in such a bad
Mhm.
light
Oh,
that
Mhm.
they're actually like, let's take Nara Smith and Hannah Nealman, and again, I don't know if Smith is her last name, but Hannah Nealman and this woman Nara,
Mhm.
and let's make a video together because we need to bring the Mormon culture back to what it should be.
Right.
damage control.
Right.
Damage
Basically.
control,
Yes.
which is what people are
Yes.
saying they're doing, which is kind of
Yes.
crazy.
Well, and that's a very interesting thing. We'll close on this, but that's the very interesting, that's a very dangerous, that's a very exciting thing about social media
Mhm.
because it really has democratized. I mean, anybody that has a mic, anybody that has an iPhone, anybody that has access to apps can go out and talk and share their point of view or their side of the story.
Mhm.
So it really is
Yeah.
more challenging, to keep things under wraps
Yeah.
when people, and not necessarily that we're always getting, the real deal out there at any given time, but that is, I mean, that's the power of social media. And it's
Yeah.
very interesting that do they call it mom talk? So the Mormon wives.
Mom talk.
So
Yeah.
mom talk, y- I mean, now they have a reality show. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
it's really crazy what happens with these, and especially over on TikTok. So
Yeah.
we could go on and on and on. I'm sure we will probably revisit this and in the years to come because
Next set of hot trends.
it's very fascinating when you really do
It really
take a
is.
deep
Yeah.
dive into into what's going on, and TikTok really does seem to be at the center of it. I don't really
Mhm.
hear anything happening over on Instagram or YouTube Shorts of the same magnitude
No, yeah, it's completely
that
different.
I do over on
Yeah.
TikTok. So, okay, ladies. Well, I think it's been a very lively conversation, very interesting.
Enlightening. I learned a lot.
Very, very much. Are you gonna go get a TikTok app? Are you gonna go
No.
download that right now, Kelly?
I'm not.
Kelly is not. Kelly says no.
I'm not convinced.
Okay, ladies. Well, actually not, it doesn't conclude because it concludes this segment because we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back with my favorite segment, which is new and noteworthy, where we share something fun with our viewers. And we're back with new and noteworthy. So this is just a little quick segment. We just like to wrap up our podcast with this, because this is what I love about having my daughters-in-law, having girlfriends. I mean, just being in the lives of other women is we just love to share things. And I always get like such great tips, not only knowledge, but great tips. So today, Kelly, I'll just kick it off with you. So what do you have that's new or noteworthy?
Well, it's a little of both, I guess. So we have an upcoming podcast on Nicole Kidman.
Mm-hmm.
And so in research for that podcast, I watched a television show that she did with Taylor Sheridan. It's called Special Ops Lioness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an American spy thriller kind of. Written by Taylor Sheridan, executive produced by Zoe Saldana and Nicole Kidman, who are both in the show. Written by Sheridan, I said. So it's basically about this special ops unit that sends women into they're in Afghanistan and stuff, and they've had found that, or they created this group of women who they'll plant the woman with someone in the family of the mark that the CIA is going after, because they found that women can bond together and they get better access to the target. Right? Generally.
Right.
So this whole show is basically about this special ops unit, and Zoe Saldana is the leader of it, and Nicole Kidman is higher up in the CIA. It was an interesting show. It was really after only really watching like Taylor Sheridan's kind of neo-Western stuff, it was really interesting to see him writing a completely different story. I think that he is actually a fairly decent writer for women. I've read a lot of negative reviews on this show saying otherwise, but I actually felt like I was captivated by the characters. I was excited to see the next episode. I kind of was interested in the characters. And so when I got to the end of the show, I was like, well, I didn't feel like the time I spent with it was wasted.
Okay. So you gave it a thumbs up or 2 thumbs up?
Just 1 thumb up.
Just one?
I think it's interesting. I think it's beautifully shot. I think that they, are doing a lot of stuff semi on location, so it doesn't feel like a Hollywood backlot, which I thought was important, especially for where it's set.
I like that about Taylor Sheridan because he does, his productions are beautifully shot.
Yeah.
And they really are. It's not on a backlot. It's they're out in the wild of wherever their setting is. So
yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks. I look forward to that because I just read a season 2 is coming up.
Yeah, October 27th.
Okay.
Is season 2.
Well, it's that time of year where we get to binge watch TV because the days are getting shorter and the nights longer. So
yeah.
Okay, Chelsea, what do you have for us today? New or noteworthy?
I have a book, and I already talked about the first book in a different new and noteworthy. The first one was A Court of Thorns and Roses, and so this is the second book to that series, A Court of Mist and Fury, by Sarah Maas, I think is how you pronounce her last name, Maas. But it's basically I don't want to give too much away of the book if you haven't read it yet, but it's essentially kind of continues on the story from the first one, and it's kind of, mystical creatures, if you want to say. They kind of live in this world that is separate from the human world, and there is a level of, I think I talked about this in the first one, where it's a little I don't know, seductive, or what's the sexual, like 50 Shades of Grayish.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So if that gives you an idea,
I think that's a very good description. 50 Shades of Grayish.
It's not like, I will say, it's really not like too. It's not like detailed.
It's not graphic.
No, I would say actually, It Ends With Us. That book was more.
That was very
graphic than this is. But it's a really easy read. It's good so far. I'm about halfway through. It's a really big book. I think all of these books in this entire series are pretty big. Honestly, I could see them making movies out of this at some point in time, because this has been really, really popular. Yeah.
People love it.
Well, we'll stay tuned to that.
For sure.
Okay. A Court of Mist and Fury and Special Ops Lioness. And then I will bring it home with, so I recently had the opportunity to partner with Brooklinen over on YouTube. And so I just had to share it over here because I love bedding and we spend a third of our lives in bed. So I think sleep is very important. And I think bedding is very, very important. And I've always been a percale sheets kind of gal. So I like that crisp, smooth sheet. But I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go crazy here, and I'm going to order linen sheets because I've been very curious about linen sheets. And guess what?
You like them?
They are amazing. Do you have linen sheets?
No, we don't have linen sheets.
You should get some or get Brooklinen linen sheets. I am telling you, I'm sold.
Yeah.
It's a natural fiber and they're so comfortable and they're so soft. So I just had to give a shout out over here too.
Yeah.
So, which is not sponsored over here, but boy, if you have not tried linen sheets, and I'd been on the fence for a long time because I was even kind of thinking, well, maybe they'd be like a little bit rough or scratchy, but these are not at all. So Brooklinen sheets. Okay, ladies. Well, there you go. There is another episode of Message from Mom, episode 33, I believe, in the books, where we are busting the myth that mothers-in-law aren't necessarily monsters-in-law.